Hi, now we're going to discuss about physiological principles, especially respiratory system. So we will start to understand the concept of external and internal respiration. And also we want to define air volumes and flow rate that's happening in our lungs. So first of all, what is respiration? As a basis of human life, our respiration involves two ways. One is called external respiration, or we call it as a breathing. And the other is internal respiration. So external respiration means it is about transport process and inhaling oxygen from the air into our lungs and expelling carbon dioxide from lungs to the air. So this is exchange of gas in the lungs between the air and the blood that runs through the lungs. While we also have a concept of internal respiration, and that we call sometimes cellular respiration. This is more like metabolic process that cells consume oxygen and produce carbon dioxide and metabolic product. So this internal respiration means converting nutrients and oxygen into useful energy and produce waste in the cells. So this external and internal respiration are in fact closely linked, as external respiration provides oxygen to internal respiration and removes carbon dioxide that is produced by the internal respiration. I just have a table that explains it better, so I want to go over a little bit. So in terms of definition, internal respiration is metabolic process, while external respiration is a physical process. The nature of the process is external respiration is more like mechanical, while internal is biochemical process. And where does this respiration happen? Is internal respiration is at the cell level in the cell, while external respiration happens body and the environment that is in the lungs. So as a product, internal respiration produces energy and waste product, while external respiration involves in gas exchange. So let's consider about our lungs, which is external respiration system. So first, let's consider our lungs. We have a trachea, which is coming from our mouth or nose. And this trachea is so important that you can touch this and you will feel very strong, stiff ones. That is the cartilage in the trachea, because even when we are sleeping, this trachea should not fold because we need air exchange. So that's why trachea has a specific form with a lot of collagens to protect it from collapsing. And that one line of trachea separates into two, and that part, we call it as a bronchus. So it has a left main bronchus and right main bronchus. And then it goes down and down and down, and that has this bifurcating ways. You can see one trachea bifurcate, and this becomes a bronchiole, and this becomes terminal bronchiole. Up until this part, there's no actual gas exchange between the air and the body. So that is purely conducting zone. While from here, respiratory bronchiole, and then it gets down to alveolar duct. And the end part of this is so-called alveolar sac or alveolus. And this part is transition and respiratory zone. So from here, we can see the big lung has a lobes, and interesting, the right side of the lung has 3 lobes, while left side has only 2 lobes. That's probably because our heart sits here, which is a little bit on the left side. While when it gets down to this final business end, that looks like this. So bronchiole bringing air to alveoli, and there comes pulmonary artery and veins are meeting over here. So that looks like this circular globular structure that's called alveoli. And there's lots of capillary network to increase its surface area, and by diffusion, there's a exchange of oxygen and CO2. So those deoxygenated blood entering into the lung, this is pulmonary artery. And then after they get oxygenated, that blood leaving the lung and into our left atrium, which is a pulmonary vein. So this small alveoli is really small, and that is but a lot of numbers. So this a single alveolus line is called alveolus, and that's one of 300 million small sac-like units at the end of the last branches of the bronchiole network. So the diameter is only about 0.3 millimeter. That is tiny and tiny. And because the number is 300 million, we can calculate how big these alveoli compose as a volume. So that's, you can easily calculate like pi/6 times diameter to the cube and multiply by 300 million. That goes about even 4 liters. So our alveoli system composes most of our lung volume, which is even 3 to 4 liters. While these conducting zones, as conducting airway, is just purely passive conduit. And this still contains a volume, and that volume is about 150 milliliter. And what does that do in terms of gas exchange? No, it doesn't do anything about gas exchange. So sometimes we call this airway space as a dead space. We'll get back to this again. Let's consider about partial pressure of an oxygen. We know that oxygen composes of about 21% of this atmospheric air. So the atmospheric air, the pressure is about 760 millimilli Hg, or we can convert it into 1 atm or 1 times 10 to the 5th Pascal. So there are many ways to convert atmospheric pressure, but the oxygen composes only a fifth of this 760 millimilli Hg. So if you calculate, it's about 150 or 60 millimilli Hg that we denote as a partial pressure of an oxygen, P sub O2. And that becomes lower when it gets inside the lung alveolar space that is very moisturized. So it's saturated with water, and the oxygen partial pressure has to be lower because of the presence of water. And even that gets even lower when it gets into while meeting inside the cell or mitochondria, where they utilize this oxygen to produce our internal currency, which is ATP. So that part is even lower because inside the cell or mitochondria, we are continuously using that oxygen for producing energy.